property, housing,
skills,
this is revolution. Stokvel for every rural blockchain.
crypto, women, wealth and well-being.
Podcast. This is heaven. Revolution. Podcast. We are coming for everything.
Greetings, Dumelang, Molweni, Sanebonani. Welcome again to another educational episode of the Stokvel Revolution podcast. Today we are talking about something very interesting in the Stokvel industry that is really happening. Professionals using Stokvels. In other words, professionals being Stokvel members, something that was not there long ago. As we know, Stokvels have always been perceived to be for lower LSMs or even poor people. But before we get into the conversation itself, I would like you to please follow us, subscribe, comment on Spotify, YouTube, and TikTok. TikTok is Finlight1. And YouTube is Finlight. And on Spotify, just search the Stokvel Revolution podcast. Now that is out of the way. Today I have one of my favorite people when it comes to supporting initiative and collaboration, when it comes to working together in Stokvels or cooperatives, or you name it, where Black people come together and really do the work. He really does walk the talk. I have Dr. Pallo Marumo. I like calling him Abuti Doc. Co-founder of Tsoga Afrika Investment Holdings and a member of Caladrius Investments Primary Cooperative. Abuti Doc, welcome to our podcast, the Stokvel Revolutionary Podcast. Thank you so much for honoring our invite.
Thank you so much, Haitsedi. It's a pleasure to be here. It's always good seeing you, and it's always good interacting with you. And I must take this opportunity to commend you for this beautiful work that you do. It needs really deliberateness, like I always say, and it needs a lot of sacrifice. And I know that it's not paying off, but I'm sure you'll be happier when you're 65 looking back. So continue to do the beautiful work that you do.
Thank you so much for that, Doc. Before we start off, just to relax, we just hear just a conversation and being educational in terms of knowing what other people are really doing in the space of working with others. So we have a theme question on the show where we ask you your first encounter with Stokvels. What is your relationship with that you remember from your earliest memory around Stokvels?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Khaizedo. You know, the funny thing is that before 2016, I had never actually belonged to any Stokvel. I had groups, WhatsApp groups with friends, but it was just for socials. And in 2016, when Tsoga was formed, that was actually the first Stokvel, if you want to call it that I actually belonged to as a co-founder. And that was really influenced by the fact that myself and our chairman, Dr. Zex Motene, could see that we want to play a meaningful role in society, in the changing of the landscape of the country. But, you know, it's very difficult to do it alone or as a two-man band. We realized that the power will come through the numbers and us working as a collective. I always say that it's difficult for me to raise R1 million alone, but 100 of us at 10,000 rands, we raise R1 million overnight. So that was the whole thinking behind the founding of Tsoga, and we shared it with our professionals in our circles. And I think 6 months later, we had onboarded just over 100 people, and the movement started then. We call it a movement more than a business, yeah.
Very interesting. I'm always inspired about when I hear that how young Tsoga is and how well it's doing right now. But we'll get into that as we go. But tell us about you yourself specifically and your role that you are playing in these many Stokvels. I know, like me, you belong to a lot of Stokvels, or at least even if it's formalized type of Stokvels. But you are a big supporter of these initiatives.
Yes, I think to a point, I probably belong to about 6 or even 7 Stokvels. And I know some of them, we belong to them together. So my role in this, yes, besides founding Tsoga, I have played an advisory role in some of the Stokvels. The one that comes to mind is the People's Stokvel, that yours truly belonged to. And I was a member of the advisory committee there for some time, until I think last year sometime. And this is really sacrificial work where you sacrifice your time and your energy and your money sometimes, But we understand that we're doing it for the greater good of society. We're doing it for all this 200-year gap that we're trailing behind by. And clever is a man or woman who will plant that tree knowing very well they will not even enjoy the shade. So I think that's the whole thinking behind this thing. And I think we are starting to see a lot of that happening. I mean, I'm almost half a century old. And I like it when I work with people like yourself and some of the much younger people that would probably have other things to do, better things to do probably, but they understand that there is work to be done here. And things are not going to correct themselves if we're just sitting and enjoying pictures in south of France and posting on Facebook and Insta. So there's a lot of that wave of change, thinking and change of mindset that's happening. That augurs well for 10 years from now. And I will still always believe that a country can really turn in 10 years. We've seen other countries do it. And I don't see why we can't. My target was 2030. And I hope I'm still on target.
I like your target because everything always is 2030. So the interesting thing about these initiatives, these collaborative initiatives, whether it's Stokvels, cooperatives, PTYs, or Stokvels formalizing, is always how much people don't realize how much is in energy. Besides the money that you put in, but when you want the bigger picture, when you know the vision, you're doing all of these things, number one, for free in your own time, because you understand that this is bigger than you. And I like your example about the tree, that you probably are planting a tree for other people to enjoy the shade under that. It really wants people like you that know that we have to do this because we are so behind, and in order to achieve that, we have to get our hands dirty. Not everyone is willing to put their hands to make their hands dirty. So it's great to always have leaders like that. So the interesting things about the Stokvel model and Stokvels as it is, and I like when we don't even try to make it fancy, is that they were perceived as things for lower LSMs, for poor people. They are used for those type of people. But now in the recent years, we have seen a lot of professionals using the model for different things, and mostly professionals, because of they're able to participate and contribute onto this initiative. Why do you think professionals like yourselves now have decided to also participate in these informal initiatives?
Yes, I think for us, when we approached the professionals back then in 2016, what we said is that together we've got a collective of skills, expertise, but most importantly, resources, without having to cut your international holiday, taking your madam or your abuti overseas. 10,000 rands doesn't change your life. And it doesn't have to be 10,000, it can be 1,000 rand. So that is what we said. This has been done by much lower LSMs and poor people, like you said. But with us, we can gain more traction because, honestly, with the starting of a company that is now the People's Fund, which is now a trailblazer in the funding industry, which Tsoga Afrika is a shareholder of, it was started with 3,000 rands. But we didn't need a lot of money because we didn't have to pay 50,000 rands towards legal fees. We didn't need to pay 50,000 rands for business plan, coming up with business plans. We really, everything, almost 90% of things were in-house. And it doesn't cost me as an accountant to drop this. It doesn't cost our legal friend who's in the group a lot of money or time to do this, but it costs 50,000. So in that way, all the 100, all the 200 of you are able to achieve some TPF is 4 years old, and it's already up there with the big boys. And that's the beauty and the power that can be demonstrated, and a case in point being the People's Fund. So, and with many other things that we do, we realize that it costs so much less, and the 100, 200, 2,000, one of the Stokvels that me and you belong to, just under 2,000 in the People's Stokvel, which is a cooperative. There is this thing that all these 1,500 or 2,000 members are ambassadors and representatives of this very vehicle. So we spread our net wider, and then you tell a friend who tells a friend that, but there's 1,500 people doing that. So if I'm saying at a braai, I'm with insurance so-and-so, I'm with now we're talking about insurance company that we own together. And that's how this thing changes. And it speaks to us seeing a different landscape in the next 5-10 years. So that's my assessment of it. I like that, and it speaks to collective buying. It speaks to also us having a bargaining power with that corporate that you wouldn't have otherwise had a cappuccino, shared a cappuccino with. And one thing that we have learned also during this journey is that that which would have been a conversation that would have ended there at the entrance, at the reception, at the foyer, now goes behind closed doors, where the curtains are closed and we talk. Because now you've got clout, and you are a strong team that is serious, that is focused, and that takes itself seriously. And I think we know that there's never been a better time to be living in South Africa as a black person, because legislation allows us to do that. And it's been there, but we haven't been tapping on it because, you're fighting your own battles. I'm fighting my own. Sipo is fighting his own. Dog is fighting his own. But actually, the working together has shown us that we should have started this 27 years ago. It would have been fun now.
So definitely, that's what I've also seen amongst professionals using the model, is definitely the advantages that you've already highlighted. One that I like the most that you also mentioned is definitely the skills. So it's not so affordability obviously is not a problem for professionals when they're using the Stokvel model, but you're also bringing skills, which means you are saving on outsourcing at a bigger amount, because within your membership, first and foremost, you have the skills to need to professionalize everything within the group. And then number two, professionals are one of the people that really have big networks, and you're also bringing that, so it's a benefit also to be using the Stokvel model, because now you are reaching a greater network that each person is bringing. And the one that I like the most is the ambassadors. Now among our social gatherings and our social interactions, we are talking about, guys, we can do 1, 2, 3. I know professionals love that conversation, but now saying actually there's actually a Tsoga, there's actually a TPS, there's actually a Caladrius that is doing what you guys are doing. It's actually putting what we are saying into actions, and this is a very underrated thing that we don't take advantage of as professionals are using, working together and professionals. And what a greater way of doing that via the Stokvel model. Yes. And we have such great examples in terms of that being done already. Tsoga, TPS, Caladrius, the franchise Stokvels. There's so many that we are seeing formalizing. And when you are looking at the stats, I like looking at the stats of groups of how many women are in this, how many of them are younger than this, and how many are professionals. You'd find that a lot of, I did this exercise last year, a lot of people that are belonging into especially business-focused type of Stokvels or formalized groups are really professionals, and they're using the Stokvel model. And that's why today we are talking about why do professionals need to use Stokvel models, how and what do they use it on. So, but tell me about Tsoga. And what is it? How is it using the collaborative initiatives? How did it use that in order to be where it is right now? And then we'll touch on Caladrius.
Okay. One point that I didn't want to forget with the previous engagement was that, mind you, at the AGM is that of these Stokvels, is that you get a CEO of a big company, you get someone from government, you get Austina, who's a domestic worker, you get Brasipo, who's a taxi driver. So that I found very powerful when professionals merge with non-professionals, which a Stokvel model allows us to do. Because then there's 100 of us sitting in the room, and we're all different LSM groups. And you draw energies from one another.
And we can learn so much.
And we can learn so much. I just wanted to make sure that I don't forget that point, because I think it's a very, very powerful thing that deals with and peels off these labels. The class system, Lona, this LSM, and then this one is for just domestic workers. And we are now together, and we can pull one another up. And then we then bring the element of professionalism. And then, of course, we understand the difficulties of people at the lower levels. So we solve these things together, and we grow together. That's the beauty about it. Of course, there's groups that are just purely professionals. There are groups that are purely lower LSMs. Mara, a beautiful model would be a franchise that we belong to, the fast food franchise. A beautiful model, and probably first in the country, of a bunch of people coming together and owning a franchise, a national fast food franchise outlet together. So that for me means that we're getting somewhere. But to your question now.
I like that. How is Tsoga, or how did Tsoga use the Stokvel model in getting from where it was as an idea to where it is now?
Yeah. Basically for us it was to say which sectors or industries are we going to get into. Remember, this is an investment holdings company, and we recognize retail, farming, insurance, and construction as the key. Of course, we have got aspirations to get into other industries as well, but you have to start somewhere. You have to give confidence to your shareholders and your members, because our people are looking for, so what's my returns? What's the return on investment?
Of course.
But I think the issue that I was saying, there's ways that we need to think if we are going to be starting, or, because the David and Goliath type of situation, you have to take the learnings that you have from how the system has been working and realize what are your true problems and things that you need to be doing. And the returns are important, but it's equally important for us to understand what this is not going to drive itself. We have to push it together. And there's transparency that this goes with. There's governance that this goes with. And ours was to say, once we have clout, we can knock on a door of Woolies and say we're this group. And we sit on a table and talk to them. A good example would be a partnership that we forged with our insurance partner. We've got Tsoga Afrika Insurance Brokers as one of the subsidiaries of Tsoga Afrika. And I've been able to sit with people that I would have only ever seen on TV, honestly, because I was this guy with our board that, have a group of professionals that want to talk. I'm not just a one-man lone ranger who's just coming to say, hey, I've got an FSP license, can I work with you? No. We are already bringing, if you are assuming that each one of these people spends 5,000 rands per month on insurance, there's 100 of us, that's not small money. So any person who's in insurance wants to talk to you. And that is what it gave us. And our partner has been 45 to 50 years in insurance space. He's authority on insurance. And also he set up insurance companies in his 45 years, some of the big names that you know. So that is what the power of the collective created for us. And I realized there, in fact, at the beginning when I used to sit with him, I didn't know who this gentleman is. And I just, okay, what is this? Okay, some guy or something, what? Then I realized that I was been sitting with a powerhouse of insurance. And it just dawned to me at that time that these movements are very important. And until we realize the power embedded in us as a collective, in groups that we form, it is going to take us much longer to correct the age-old problems that we've been experiencing as a country. So basically, that's how it has worked for us. In construction, the same thing happens. You are able to sit with a person who's been in the construction industry. And that's what we also said. We don't want to reinvent the wheel. There's people who have been doing good work, 50 years, 100 years. You can go and sit with a wine farm and say, hey, man, produce wine in that is one pool. Yeah. So how do we do that? We want to call it Sesfil. He listens to you because there's a group of 500 of you.
Yes.
And then you would actually give him an off-take immediately and say, each one of the 500 of us will consume one. Even if those that don't consume one, we're going to buy at least 6, a box of 6 from you every month. So that's how this thing then changes everything. And Mr. Swane Pulena would say, hey. And of course, when it's time for him to unbundle and what, and then take it, then he knows or no, that team is the one that I want here because they're serious and focused.
Very, very interesting. And how did that also inspire the likes of Caladrius in using the Stokvel model? Because I know a lot of Tsoga people are also on Caladrius.
Yes.
How is Caladrius, or how did Caladrius use the Stokvel model, Bona?
That's the thing, yeah. So it's a beautiful story of how the interlinking of these, because once you've been bitten by that bug, and I hope everyone here in the studio has been bitten by the bug.
After the interviews I've had, I think they have.
Once you've been bitten by the bug, Pali, and you see how there's hope, even the potholes don't frustrate you as much. Because you know, no, man. It's just a matter of time. So once it's bitten you, you will, like you've seen with me and you stretch. Then you belong to this one. This one is Sakisi's property Stokvel. They're doing this, and it just cost me 5,000 or 10,000 rands to join. So you want to join that as well. And I think it says to me, Hore, the savings landscape can actually be affected in a positive way, especially for those people that are said to not be saving. I always wonder, every time the statistics come out and say, hey, South Africans are not saving. Oh, they're not saving. People should be encouraged to save. I'm thinking to myself, Mara, do they actually look at the Stokvels and what they're doing? And I think people like yourself, my dear sister, is your job to make sure these statistics are not right. There's a typo here. Here's that's from my side of work. And can you put them so that we can get a better and a proper reflection, rather, of the status quo in as far as savings are concerned. So you were
inspired.
Then exactly. Let us, because we have gone through the pains and blood, sweat, and tears, and no one, and I think you see that in all of the Stokvels that we belong to, you shouldn't be suffering. You were not very self. You have presented to Caladrius as invited as a guest speaker, and we do not. Me and you will never allow them to go through the pains that the people Stokvel went through. And that same applies to all of the other aspiring Stokvels, the banks, cooperative banks, or corporate financial institutions. So, and you see that energy that's coming out of wanting to share, the spirit of wanting to share the knowledge and save you the trouble. And showing people the shortcuts or guidelines. This is the easiest way to do it.
So what I find interesting about the two organizations specifically is I always talk about nowadays, especially the types of Stokvels professionals usually belong to are the ones that are going to get into big opportunities and they require them to formalize in order to be able to invest that, because as you know, as a Stokvel itself, there's limitations in terms of getting into business as a pure Stokvel. So you either formalize either into a PTY or a cooperative or a trust. And the most popular one is usually the PTY, because that's what most people are used to. And the country is full of normal companies. So Tsoga is a PTY and Caladrius is a cooperative. What made number one Tsoga decide to go the PTY route and Caladrius to go the cooperative route?
When we started, it was 2016. At the time, we really knocked on a lot of doors. Before we did that, we spoke amongst ourselves. We obviously are medical heavy because we're medical professionals, from a medical background. But we had people who have been in business, people who have been in the corporate world. And because I think the cooperative model was very new, or rather maybe new to us at the time, I remember we said with the FSB at the time, FSCA now, and we really wanted to understand which one of the vehicles that are there out there is the best. And they wanted to know what is it that you want to achieve, and then we can maybe direct you. And there was a whole lot of vehicles that were suggested. How about you open a limited company? How about you open a corporate investment scheme? There was a whole lot of things that then we decided, you know what, here's this that we know, all of us here. And I think another thing was that we had shareholders that had different pockets, so it was going to be like that, which a cooperative doesn't allow.
Yes.
So we end up with a PTY in that sense.
Side.
Yeah, no regrets, but then we are a closed company. The version 2 of Tsoga, which was the part of the plan then, was that we're going to have this vehicle that is going to be open-ended and just onboarding, which would probably be a public company or something of that nature. But we got busy. We started getting busy, and we're still busy now that we're having a time, but we don't have to, because then we can partner with the people Stokvel, we can partner with your Caladres of the world, we can partner with other Stokvels or cooperatives. So we don't really have to do that anymore. And I think strategically, each one of these, the Caladres wants to open a cooperative bank. The people Stokvel wants a cooperative bank. But one of the things that Caladres wants is to have their own medical supplies company, because they are medical heavy as well, and they consume a lot of that. They have medical practice software that costs anything to 5,000 rands a month. Once we reach the number of 1,000 people, now there's about 400, or just over 400. Once we reach 4,000 people, 1,000 people, you can imagine that that's 5 million rand of spend every month towards medical practice software. So, but then it goes back to that thing, it's easier to approach a company that has been doing good work in there, or maybe a struggling company that will probably be amenable to talking to us to say, hey, we can actually bolster your bottom line there. How about we talk? You see. So then it becomes easier. And of course, there is hospitals. A bulk of us are medical professionals. There is day clinics that we can start talking about seriously now. And the government obviously sees you differently when you're a group of 500 people. Medical professionals say, hey, we want you to come in here. And they were not taking no for an answer. And that's the kind of check that we need to have, to say, no. Tell us what is it that we need to do so that you approve this thing, because we've seen the place, we have done our due diligence, and this is going to work.
So it's all about what you are trying to achieve. So the thing that I always do on the show when I am asking all these questions to my desk, I always find those little moments of teaching. You said something very important when I asked you between the PTY and the cooperative. So at Stokvels, especially these days as they revolutionize, is they formalize into a PTY or a cooperative or a trust or whatever legal entity that you would choose, but it depends on what you are trying to achieve. Like right now, Tsoga decided to be a PTY because the different investors or the shareholders there, they were able then to bring different capitals, and that was working for them. While a cooperative, what they're trying to achieve with Caladrius is the fact that now now everybody needs to be on the same page, because that's what the cooperative allows in terms of same shareholding and paying the same amount. Most importantly, also the end goal of that, wanting to collectively have a CFI, cooperative financial institution, so a cooperative makes more sense in that sense. So it's very important when you are a Stokvel that you consult around these things of which legal entity you'd formalize into, so that it talks to the end goal of what we're trying to achieve as a Stokvel, and to get more insight and education in the legal entity in terms of the limitation and what you can be able to do with it, and what you not able to do it, and what will be more suitable in what you are trying to achieve. So I know I get a lot of this question, especially on Twitter. That why not just do a PTY is the easiest? Why don't you? Because that's what allows what you don't have a lot of challenges there, because cooperatives, they can be a bit complicated and too all over the place. But the fact is, sometimes you can use a PTY, but it's not fit for the end goal. Like a PTY wouldn't be fit if I want to own a bank, for example, because banks are more fit going through the cooperative route. If you want to be one day a big bank, they prefer the cooperative route. So very important to do your research when you are legalizing. So this is a great example that we have just spoken about regarding Tsoga and Caladrius. And then in general, Dr. Pallo, is that I wanted to know, we talk about this, the great thing about working as a collaborative and working with people, but there are teething problems and there are challenges. In your personal experience in being involved in these many collaborative initiatives, what have you seen being the challenge or teething problems?
Yeah, I think that's a very important question, Khaizedi, because now one of the things that we picked up was that big corporates don't want crowds.
Yes.
When they hear you are a broad church, you just start thinking of matata decision making that's going to take forever. Now you have to take this thing to the members, and 500. When are they going to meet? And corporate works fast. Business world works fast. I think that's one of the things that we need to be aware of. But I think also you do meet them. They're few and far between, but you do come across those people, like we did in our case in the insurance industry, when we met with our now shareholders, partners. But of course, I don't know if I'm allowed to mention the name, but the fast food giant that we worked with through Tim Baroi, when we opened a shop in Soweto, first of its kind, I heard that there was lots of doors that were knocked at and they wouldn't open. Yeah. Or even if they opened like this.
Like, yo, 100.
How many? Yeah. So now, but then one understood this thing and said, hey, I've never done this thing before, but Bafeto, I want to give you a chance because it's music to my ears. So we have to continue until it becomes a gold standard for partnerships. And if we are going to talk about triple VBEE, triple VBBEE, which is very, very, very broad-based Black economic empowerment, which is where we should be moving. It is Stokvels. That can be the only answer. It doesn't continue. It doesn't help anything for us to take the usual lofty and put them into opportunities when there's masses of people in Stokvels and cooperatives that could actually tick that box better than anything.
Very true. I get a lot of challenges because I work with, besides being involved in these many initiatives that are formalized to either cooperatives or PTYs, but just consulting with those that you are not part of, and you'll be like, it's so hard to be given a chance to do a business as a group, because they still think that you are not formalized enough to be just dealing, for example, with the board, or be just dealing with the directors. But I think it's very important even for members that are part of these initiatives to actually realize the struggle in order for us to move forward. Or especially in the cooperatives one, that if you have voted a board in to be leaders, yes, they have powers and they have restrictions, for example, but to allow them to lead in order to participate in these business opportunities. So the board having to bring everything back to members is the exact reason why we are getting closed, our doors are getting closed. So if we have a strong board that can actually do these decisions on behalf of the members, especially after consultation, members need to sit from an understanding point of view, which yes, we are a cooperative, a lot of things have to be put on a vote, but we also have put a leadership in place that we should support when they do take decisions in our lives, as one of the things that just eases that challenge of being doors being shut, because when we giving you guys a chance, you first have to go vote about it. So I think as a collective, we also need to understand that level of our role in supporting the leaders we put in our organizations, even though we've got same shareholding and same everything. If we want to participate and compete with the likes of PTYs as cooperatives, for example, and I use compete in the fact of there should be no question when a big short guy looking at a cooperative proposal and a PTY proposal that are doing the same. It shouldn't be that I'm taking this one because it's a PTY is going to be faster. It should be which one is good in delivering what I do. And this comes a lot to members, and that's why again I'm choosing that to be a teaching moment that for members to really consider that when it comes to their leadership. And then I want to ask, currently with where Tsoga is, what are you guys trying to achieve as an organization?
I think what we are trying to achieve would be to say there's a different way of doing things. I think what we are trying to achieve is to say we cannot continue to just play on the outskirts and the peripheries. We are trying to say it's not difficult to actually start a bank. And we're living that now. It's not difficult to start an insurance company. It's not difficult to start a retail chain. But it will take, because we don't have money in trust funds, and the money is within us. And I mean, I always say that average spend is, of every professional says 30% of their money goes to insurance and that. Because we've got 5 cars, Palesa, and the triple-story house and so on. I say that if part of that money goes to an insurance entity that understands what you are trying to achieve as a collective, because we need to peel off these labels and bust these myths, and also use the things that the vehicles that have been there, or the way business has been done before, to benefit us. That's what we are trying to achieve. Now my role at Tsoga right now is to say insurance is a Stokvel. And that's the line we use. The same one that our mothers have been using to bury their children, to take them to school, to have groceries, to have their school kids' uniform in January. It's insurance. Ours is to explain it to people in a way that they'll understand. And also to have our people, because when you're 1, I can charge you $300 when I know very well it can be $100. But as a Stokvel of 2,000 people, which we are soon going to be with the people Stokvel, we can now sort of change the price of bread and say, hey, this $10.50 is not right. It's not right. We want for $7.50. And then we'll go with, and it can come down to that. So that's what we're trying to do as Tsoga, to say, whilst we're making money, or rather, whilst we are getting into business, and that's important, we are taking everyone with us, and also we are making money together whilst doing it. That's the whole founding of Tsoga, the principles behind the founding of Tsoga.
So trying to really make insurance affordable and
accessible, and also regulate the price a little bit better.
Please, especially insurance.
Yes,
but I like what you're saying. Insurance is such a typical Stokvel, actually.
It's a Stokvel. That's really, that one that's gone to private school, but it's a Stokvel.
Definitely. I know Luyanda likes saying that, and everything. Like, so many things are the Stokvel that went to private schools.
Exactly.
And then Calabrius, what is that collective trying to achieve?
And it's basically exactly the same thing, to focus in the military terms, I'm an ex-soldier, it's called concentration of effort. So Galadriel is trying to do exactly the same thing that probably is shared across all Stokvels. We want to buy together. They go to cash and carry that and buy together, and then, because they get a better deal. So that's what they do. But the bulk of the members are in the medical space. I get it. So it's medical supplies that they consume every day.
So they want to buy that in bulk.
Exactly, they want to buy that in bulk. They want to buy the software that they use. Actually, how about they own it, or at least own a stake in it, or at least have a special agreement with the service provider. But then it would mean all of the people that are consuming that service move to there. And that's the trick with the cooperatives and Stokvels. It doesn't help. I've been with Roma for 52 years. Why do I have to leave now? I'm a member of the Stokvel. The idea is we're all going to move. And if there's any glitches, we correct them together as we go. Because it doesn't help, then you're defeating the purpose.
Buying power within, especially you're saying, since the mostly in the Calabrias are medical fields, so important, medical professionals, so important, so that they're able to acquire those things with the power of numbers.
Exactly, but it's exactly.
There's so much that can be done within that action.
Yes.
But we'll have part 2 to really get the part that, especially when there's a lot of progress within those. People always want to know, these things are great. And what I like the most about, the reason why I also talk so proudly about the initiatives that I'm also part of, is the fact that we usually walk the talk. We're not just talking, especially in these spaces where there's so much talk and writing around, we can buy a Pick and Pay, we can buy a mall together, but it all ends up in a braai while you're drinking beer and nobody really wants to do anything about it. But these initiatives are actually showing that you can actually do that, and rather than just talking about it in your social circle and ending and just dreaming there. Yes, some fail, some has huge challenges, but the fact is that they are proven that it's possible to do that. So I want you to tell me that what is the benefit as a professional of belonging in or being a member in or participating in these initiatives, and I'll tell you mine.
I want to say to you, Haized, some of the benefits should not necessarily be hore. It is a benefit to me directly, and I think that's a level of maturity that we need to have. It should be hore. If I'm a doctor, I've got a practice in Tembisa, and I belong to the Stokvel that I proudly display in the foyer, in the reception. And my 50 patients per day come in and see Horema. Doctor, we don't want to do.
Dr. Stokvel.
And then they want, what else Stokvel? And then they see what, okay. Then and then they can also already see on this Pula banner how you join. Then if doctor is there, I'm joining also. I've got no reason not to join. So, but then that speaks to you have played your role as a professional to make the circle bigger, and probably Anamamazi will go, Kianato benefit even more than you. And that you have won.
And that's what I like about you. You wear these things on the sleeves of your thing. Like even the things you wear. Look at you, and that is not a small thing, because it is such a radical way of advertising of things that you really believe in, and inclusivity of everybody. That, guys, there's this thing, selfish guy, or just because a Nike dog, whatever, we can really do this together. And I'm telling you now, like, power of association is very, very important. There are people that have joined the people's Stokvel or the franchise Stokvel because Palesa was Stokvel ya buka ela. Uteng mona na ke abana lo ba like gibone Palesa ka join. So the association, and that's why it's so important, especially also for our reputations in and everything to be so transparent of the challenges, yet the rewarding, which hopefully is coming in the near future of what we are trying to do. This like, yes, it's not easy, but the most important is that we are getting our hands dirty using the Stokvel model to show you that it is possible to build wealth, to change the economy of South Africa through using the Stokvel model, which is literally just collaborating with other ordinary people or other professionals or other business people, or even just a mix of everybody and trying to achieve a bigger goal, and stop just talking about these things and actually attempt to doing that. That is the biggest benefit that I foresee. And then lastly, I would like you personally as Dr. Pallo, is what do you envision currently and in the future we can do as a collective, in your view?
This is now a question that is answered by what I've once heard from you, where you said, Abuti Doc, you see, go Kenya, there's things called SACCOs, Savings and Credit Cooperatives. And now, financial flows and generally the financial landscape here in Kenya works on these SACCOs to the tune of 70%, 80%.
70%.
Now, some of these SACCOs started as 15 people, 10 people, 5 people, and they're boasting now 90,000 people. Now, this is a bank that is owned by the people. This is an insurance company that's owned by the people. They insure themselves, they bank themselves, everything. So they can buy together. Now, that's 90,000 people. So that's where I see us going. I know that we still a long way to go, but I think that now that we have started, and I see this wave of change, which I'm sure you can confirm, can corroborate. I would love to see that by 2030, where the Stokvel movement, the cooperative movement, has grown in leaps and bounds. Because it can only make sense to me that I don't see any other way except through the power of the collective and cooperative economics that we are going to change the financial landscape of the country, or the business landscape of this country. So that's why it's so important for me, but it speaks to using clever tools. It speaks to using platforms like Stokvel, which is a home for Stokvels. Governance is important, transparency is important, and of course, accountability is important in us getting there, because you don't want those stories that are very sad of people having lost their monies and what. So that's where I see ourselves in 2030, that at least 25% of the financial flows in the country will be through cooperatives.
No pressure in Atakana 2030. Kafalanto has to happen 2030. Dr. Pallo, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for being a revolutionary and truly walking the talk of Ubuntu. We really, really need people like you in this Stokvel industry. I personally appreciate the value and support you have shown in collective initiatives, and when you continue so that we can really do these great things in 2030.
It's only a pleasure, Khaitzedi. Thank you so much.
But before we let you go, tell us the contact details of Tsoga. How can people get a hold of you guys, and etc.
So it's www.tsogaafrica.co.za, and of course that is now our website at Tsoga, and of course www.tsogainsure.co.za. Do you want me to have the numbers?
No, email it.
Hello at tsogainsure.co.za, and of course
social media.
You see, that's where now I'm not good at.
Anyway, anybody that wants to be a member of Caladrius?
Yes, Caladrius, like I said, yes, it's onboarding, continues to onboard, and until at some point we decide not to onboard. So it is admin at caladrius.co.za, secretariat at caladrius.co.za. Those are the emails.
Thank you very
you so
much. We
much.
appreciate your value. We appreciate everything about you that you're doing in these collectives. And that is all we have for you today. Remember, for Stokvel stories and to know more about Stokvels and what Stokvels can do, you can get my book at Exclusive Books or Bargain Books or all other book stores out there. This is how professionals can use Stokvels. Thank you.
Unbelievable.
Property, housing,
Skills.
this is revolution. Stokvel for every rural blockchain.
Crypto. Women, wealth and well-being.
Podcast. This is heaven revolution. Podcast. We are coming for everything.